Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Aliens and UFOs video. Alright, let's go ahead and let's do another entry here. This one yet again, based on one of your newer suggestions. Please keep those suggestions coming. I'm going to be doing a couple of more videos for this go around, and then I'll give this playlist a rest and then start focusing on another one soon. This one actually has to do with a pretty frightful alien encounter there that occurred at a location called Cyprus. When I was reading this information, as I usually do whenever I'm skimming over the information posted, I always try to imagine, put in my head exactly what was going on during that specific encounter. And when I was reading everything here, it definitely stood out as one of the more frightful experiences yet when it comes to meeting an alien. I mean, even though this alien didn't necessarily do anything bad, just the way it looked, just the way it moved, and then of course this guy being by himself, and then there in the dead of night, it all equaled to a very memorable, but again, very frightful encounter. But it has to do with this. You're looking at a representation of it now. It's known as the Dhekelia, I hope I'm saying that correctly, Dhekelia Barracks Alien Encounter. So let's go ahead and let's talk about all the fascinating info associated with what occurred there in the barracks on that fateful night. So here's essentially what happened. You have to go back to September 1968 to be specific. So what is that, a little over 50 years or so from that date? It was at a place called Cyprus, which is like its own tiny little, it's called an island nation, and there at a specific spot called the Dhekelia Barracks is where this place occurred. I got the idea that these barracks make it seem like it's a military compound of some sort. Maybe some of you that are there local or maybe even attended this Dhekelia Barracks might know more info on it. Let me know. Is it a big place? Is it a small place? Is it remote? Is it in the middle of a city? And so on. In this case, though, whatever occurred here definitely left, again, a memorable experience for this person. This person is actually unnamed. They're completely anonymous. There's no tying as to who this person is. But there were an NCO, and they happened to be stationed there within the barracks. And the way I was reading the info, in the barracks, their location, it was on the second floor. And it sounded like he was asleep, but they had a guard dog right there as well that was a Turkish wolfhound that was used just in case if there was anything bad happening around that location. You know how wonderful dogs are when it comes to detecting even the slightest noise or maybe even the slightest smell that could keep them alert, and then they would start barking and making sure that they could draw attention to what they were experiencing. That's what I realized here when I was reading this info. This was a guard dog that was used just for that purpose. Apparently there was also some terrorism attacks that could have occurred there, and that's why they had some of these guard dogs there. In any case, that dog was specifically at that place with this unnamed NCO on this fateful night. So all of a sudden, this dog started barking, and then he started growling at something that was occurring outside of the barracks. So in other words, it wasn't yet within the location that this guy was at, like whatever dorm he was in, it wasn't there just yet, but it was happening in the outside area of the barracks. This would have been somewhere around 3 a.m., according to later reports. It sounded like, though, even though this dog was growling and barking and trying to draw attention, no one else, none of the other soldiers were alerted to this fact. It sounded like there was pretty much it might have been so isolated in that spot that no one else was able to hear this dog, or who knows, maybe they were at another location, guarding another place. In other words, that wasn't close enough to hear the dog itself. Either way, though, it did wake up this NCO, and then he was able to try to find out essentially what occurred. He was on a bunk bed as well. I don't know the exact parameters of the dorm, like if it was a large dorm or if it was just him by himself. Instantly when I'm thinking the word dorm, I'm thinking that there has to be other people there, right? Other people, other beds. But reading more info on this, it made it sound like he may have been by himself, maybe within his own dorm, something along those lines. Either case, though, when he woke up, that's when he heard what he described as a high-pitched humming noise coming from right outside his area. So again, whatever dorm he was in, this noise was right outside. But just like in a Friday the 13th film, or any other type of horror film, this noise was coming directly towards his location. Not only that, but it was intelligent enough to be able to go straight to the doorway that would be leading up from the interior of the dorm. In other words, entering into the dorm itself, and then up towards a stairway area leading towards his location, which was behind a door over there on the second floor. So again, imagine that you wake up, you suddenly start hearing the dog going bonkers, and then you hear this sound, this humming noise, and then slowly but surely, again, like out of a horror movie, there it is, shifting towards your front door, and then it's suddenly inside. That's what this thing was. I don't know how he was able to detect it as far as it being suddenly inside. It must have been that the humming noise, once it was in an isolated area, like let's say instead of it being outside but now inside an actual building, it must have shifted the noise and alerted him that, hey, this thing was now inside his place. That's when he walked out, and from his doorway there was a little, I don't know if you call it a crevice or something else, like something that's there in terms of a pathway outside the doorway that would then lead to the stairs going downwards. That's when he saw this. He saw this eerie looking, strange, bizarre, very frightful thing as far as an alien. Here's how it was described. It had a brightish orange face. I mean, it was just very bright and almost looked like it was almost going to be on fire, if you could even relate to that when it comes to how bright orange it was. But this thing, whatever it was for whatever reason, inclined forwards. Like imagine in an unnatural angle, the top portion of it, in terms of its shoulders, its neck, and its head, was inclining forwards. Nothing, again, like what a human would have, especially if they had like a spine on there. And when it was coming up, it had this horrendous, hideous scowl on it. Like it was staring upwards straight at him, but with a scowl that just obviously would have looked just so menacing when it comes to that. I got the impression too that this bright orange look on it seemed to illuminate the surrounding area, and you could imagine that too. This thing coming upwards, dead of night, everything should be pitch black darkness inside that particular barrack or dorm. And yet here this thing was illuminating itself and then going up straight towards him. And it was doing it in a very slow fashion. Again, staring straight at him. Fiery red hair, orange color. And then also these eyes, these piercing eyes that never ever blinked. But what made it even more frightful was this blue suit that it had on underneath, let's say, its neck area. He could see most of it, but only towards the torso, and then the rest of it disappeared. It was actually like it was going invisible towards the rest of the bottom part of itself. Isn't that eerie? I mean, you would see something like this floating towards you in an unnatural fashion, especially with that angle that its head or its neck, shoulder area was doing. And here you have this thing coming up. But what added truly to the end, like in other words, the cherry on top, the bonus at the end, was this head, whatever was on top of it, decided to do a 180-degree turn, almost as if it went from staring at him upwards. Let's say, again, he was there on top of the stairs. It turned 180 degrees to look back behind it. That was it. That was the moments that this NCO, that this soldier decided he had enough. That's when he suddenly went back into his dorm, slammed the door behind him, and again, what also was making things frightful was that humming sound was very loud now that it was inside the dorm. But even when he slammed the door behind him, now it was coming closer and closer to the door, and with this humming sound getting louder and louder. If you thought that maybe the dog would be able to help out in this situation, unfortunately not. It rightfully so, you can't blame the dog. It went underneath one of the beds and was just whimpering afterward. It wasn't able to do much because it in turn was so scared of what was coming towards them. I mean, clearly, since this thing was barking from the very beginning, it knew that this was not going to be a unique situation, that this was something very, very frightful for it. And so with this humming sound coming closer to the door, and with the NCO pretty much cornered where he was, remember he was like on the second floor, it's not gonna like he was gonna be able to jump out or go anywhere else. I got the impression the stairs were the only way in and out. That's when he suddenly came to mind to get his gun and then fire it directly at the door. Apparently this was a spear gun. Someone might have to point out on this if this is something that's truly, I guess, there for the barracks and for, I guess, any NCO. But in any case, this bolt went straight through the door, and the instant that happened, everything stopped. There was nothing else. No more sound. No more indication of whatever this alien was coming straight towards him. It suddenly stopped the very moment that the bolt of the spear gun went straight through the door. It had no indication if it hit the alien or if it caused it any harm. It was almost like it was never there at the beginning. It just suddenly, absolutely stopped. And so it didn't mean that this NCO was going to just come out immediately and be able to see what's going on. He actually decided to wait the next hour, making sure, obviously, that nothing else was going to happen. That's when a relief guard actually found him. He was able to tell the news to him. He told the news to the commanding officer. They, in turn, did a full check on him, medical and psychological profile. They found him to be everything as far as healthy, nothing in terms of it being bad, like in terms of his health causing this situation in his body or his mind, something along those lines. But for all intents and purposes, this was the alien encounter that happened there at the Dhekelia Barracks. Unbelievable reading this information, how frightful this could have been for this poor guard that was there. And the dog itself, he ended up being okay. There was nothing else that happened to him in terms of this situation. But if anyone has any more info, anything else I might have missed, then please post those comments below. Anyone there from the Dhekelia Barracks, maybe somebody who's stationed there, knows more info on the local level as to this legend. Maybe even if you're lucky enough, if you know the exact dorm that this place happened, you know how much I love that stuff. I love knowing that you can go to one exact spot down to the centimeter, like where that spot is. Can you imagine going to that dorm, seeing those stairs right there, and then realizing that something like 50 plus years ago, there was an alien walking straight, if you could call it that, walking straight up these stairways. How awesome would that be? So if anyone has any more info on that on a local level, I'd love to hear it. All right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care.